Hi, today I will be talking about the astrology for Monday, March 10th, 2025. That is the moon's day. All of the days have planetary days, and today is the day of the moon. We have the moon in early degrees of Leo, and so it's answering to that sun in Pisces, very creative, imaginative, all about the dream. We need to remember too that today the sun is conjoining with Saturn, so there could be a little bit of a soberness, right? A um sadness, a dourness, a little bit of a glumness that could be also kind of hanging over in the sky at this time. We need to remember that Venus is currently retrograde. So Venus is reconsidering a lot of things about love, about value, about relationships, about harmonizing, about aesthetics, about beauty, about pleasure. And so if you are finding yourself, taking to heart that kind of Venusian to heart sort of way of reconfiguring yourself inside of this new playing field of all Venus things, right? Love, pleasure, money, all of it. This is kind of the perfect time to be doing so. However, there is a caution against doing any sort of like big purchases right now, just because Venus is not in the greatest of condition, considering that she is in her detriment. She doesn't really like being in Aries. She can be a bit spicy, a bit independent, and she really wants it just her way. So there could just be a little bit of a caution there. So just letting you know. We are in Mercury's retrograde shadow. Mercury will be going retrograde in just a few days from now. And so we know that Mercury is kind of going over the territory that he is going to have to revisit again. And it's kind of interesting too that both Venus and Mercury will be going back into Pisces, dipping their toe in almost like they forgot something in the Pisces realm, in the dream realm, to go forward anew again when they go direct again in Aries later on. So there's some interesting data here about kind of endings and culminations and new beginnings here. We are also in the middle of eclipse week. The eclipses are here. We've been in the liminal space of the eclipses for a few weeks now, and we have an eclipse coming on the 14th and then also again on the 29th. So for this day, we do have the moon in the critical fixed degrees of 8 and 9 in the morning. So as the moon makes its trines to Mercury and Venus that are both in Aries around 8 and 9 degrees respectively, we know that there's some sort of critical piece of information that we need to kind of put a pin in and pay attention to, right? This is a social trine. This is an intuitive, fiery, fast, sort of creative trine. And we like that. We like that energy of creativity, of flow, right? It has um, the the feeling of Jupiter, kind of an overabundance. And because these are both in Leo, can be kind of an independent sign, right? Of just me, right? And then Aries can be a very independent sign as like the warrior, the the lone wolf, the one going out into new frontiers, right? Um, there could be something here that's really flowing that is very self-centered, um, very self-serving. And so it'd be very interesting to hear about the conversations that you're having right now with other people that may not really be taking other people into consideration and just only one person's needs, desires, wants, that kind of thing. And as Mercury is in Aries, we know that Mercury in Aries can be a bit spicy. I love the word spicy for Aries. Shooting at the hip, really just saying what he feels, intuitively feels, and is informed by that Mars in Cancer, which is still very out of bounds, which is, having the desire to be protective, to guard one's emotional sense of well being. And so we know that Mercury might not necessarily be thinking far out into the future. This is about now. We know that the words that are being exchanged right now could be a bit too fast and furious to understand potentially the weight of them. Because we also have, Venus in Aries in retrograde, this could be around relationships, right? The conversations, arguments that could be potentially having inside of relationships right now. And so I would say be very careful of the conversations that are happening right now, to put a pin in them, to remember, maybe journal, to be able to come back to this again when these two planets come back to this point. But because of that criticalness of the moon, I think that it's just like put a little pin in it. And also we have Venus today is sitting at that degree of the eclipse that will be happening in the end of March 29th. So while we have all of these Pisces planets very close to hanging out in the degrees of the eclipse that's happening on the 14th, we have Venus now sitting at the eclipse point that's happening at the end of March. So these days are all tied together, right? There's the end and the beginning, the culmination, Pisces, and the beginning, Aries. So these times should really be paid attention to. We need to be very present inside of these things. Later on in the day for Monday, we do have the moon in Leo sextile Jupiter in Gemini. So this is again another social aspect. The aspects of the moon, the major aspects, the Ptolemaic aspects that the moon is making today are pretty pleasant. So it's like, it feels like the energy and the conversations around value, around what we're thinking, we're feeling, are really flowing. This is a very kind of social time. There are lots of conversations, lots of data kind of floating around in the air, especially with Jupiter and Gemini. But there is a caution here with these like friendly, fast aspects. Like these are all pretty fast signs. Gemini is fast and Aries is fast. There's something here about, I think there's a caution here that we need to slow down and we need to think a little bit more intensely and deeply. If information comes out on this day that kind of seems a little bit too good to be true, I think we really need to listen to our intuition, the Aries portion of that, and go and research further before we press share, before we press send, anything like that. We do know that Jupiter and Gemini can be about propaganda and about both truths and untruths. It doesn't really matter for Gemini, right? It's just kind of like data and information. And Jupiter is debilitated in Gemini sign. Jupiter is debilitated in Gemini. That is a tongue twister. And so Jupiter isn't necessarily acting to his full beautiful potential. Instead, he's just like, here's a lot of stuff and, take it or leave it. So there's a bit of that. So all things considered, this is a social day. You may have woken up a little bit feeling pushed, a little bit fired up, because we did have that Moon Pluto opposition in the middle of the night before. But all things considered, it's a pretty flowing day. Now, if it is flowing in the good way, great. If it's flowing in the bad way, try to take a breath and slow down a bit. I think that's the caution for the day. All right, I will be back with tomorrow's weather. Take care.
Hey, thank you for listening to today's Astro Weather with me. I'm Sydney. As a reminder, I'm always open to seeing both new and my beloved returning clients. My website is ddastrology.com. That is D as in dog, D as in dog, astrology.com to check me out, and just click the email buttons in order to schedule with me. If you're into a more conversational feel with your podcast and content, I have a podcast called BS Astrology with my fellow Mercurial Mommy Bender, and we put out episodes every Sunday for the week. Just search BS Astrology on YouTube or wherever you enjoy listening to your podcasts, including Spotify, Audible, and more. Have a good day.